like tattoo culture mixed with wood block printing and a little bit of like cartoon influence, as I do like comics, as I'm heavily tattooed, and I like wood block printing. It is what it is. So with that, I know we covered like a lot of information in like 10 minutes, but were there any like questions or thoughts as to things we've covered at the immediate moment?
I actually have a question for them. At the end of the semester, they're going to have to create an online portfolio we're doing like a brand yourself week, and they'll have to create an online portfolio and upload all of their projects that we've worked on this semester. So what advice do you have about creating like that aesthetic? So it's going to be like through some kind of free platform like Wix. Like what do you, when they sit down and they're overwhelmed by all of the templates and designs they can do, like what's your advice for that type of visual when you're branding yourself?
I'm going to say some like really dumb, simplistic shit real quick. Having your information concise and accurate is like the easiest way to stand out. So I do media marketing part-time at a Charlotte chain. I'm the only person here there doing it. So I very, very frequently interact with like the district manager of some sorts, and they nitpick the hell out of people's resumes for lack of clarity. Like it'll have a lot of information, but it doesn't say anything. It's just stuff to be stuff. And they'll nitpick it. And obviously I get a look at it just because they value my opinion. But just having everything concise and accurate, easy to read is like literally the easiest thing you can do. Could you imagine spending 20 hours making your resume really, really pretty and forgetting to put your contact email? Like you spent 20 hours for nothing because they can't contact you. You know, or even your name, or even what specifically you're applying for. Because if you apply or try to communicate in vague conversations, like imagine going to a restaurant and being like, I want this. Well, what do you want? This. They're not going to give you anything. They'll be like, oh, okay, and just walk off. You know, getting information out there concisely is literally the most minimalist thing you can do. Once you have that, you know, like a little checklist straighten up, you can add like a little bit of aesthetics to hopefully sell the aesthetic you believe yourself to resemble. So for me, I have two resumes. I have a professional resume, which is just like a bunch of ego stroking, and you know, it's very clean, it's very concise. It's 2 pages. It has certain accomplishments that I deem valuable. It has my educational background, has my nonprofit work, has like child mentoring and stuff like that. Then I have my graphic design stuff, which again, a little bit more niche-y, a little bit more ego stroking. So it has like the programs I've worked with, things I've done, entities I've worked for. Like this is like really silly, but I did all of the artwork for Charlotte Pride a few years back, which is like an LGBT festival parade thing. It's like a 3-day weekend, but it's up there, you know? Because it's important in the realm of graphic design, but it's not specifically important in the realm of professionalism unless, you know, I want to work for people who, you know, are very pivotal in inclusivity, which for the record, I believe everybody should be inclusive and all that good jazz, but some places obviously value things more than others. So you got to like pivot toward that. So for me, I don't think it's an ignorant thing to also have resumes that are a little bit more tailored to certain industries. You know, maybe 2, that way we're not getting too niche-y. Hopefully that answers the question. Does it? Okay,
Yep,
cool.
that was perfect. Thanks.
Mm-hmm. So, you know, I've name dropped a few things I'm really proud of. You know, I have done a book. I've done work for WB, World Wrestling Entertainment, All Elite Wrestling, TNT, the TV station, Tijuana Flats, which is like a chain like Tex-Mex restaurant on the East Coast. I don't know if it's in Texas, but hey, it is what it is. And a few other things, you know, and it's really cool opportunities. Like, don't get me wrong, but people always wonder like how these opportunities take place. I've touched upon making people happy. So in that regard, whenever work is offered or opportunity is offered, I just say yes to it. You know, because like here's the thing, it could always not pan out on their part, but why are you stopping it from happening? You know what I mean? Like when I got the hot topic opportunity, I actually entered a contest and lost. But whoever like owned the license to the designs that we submitted, because they were like intellectual property designs, they contacted me and were like, "Hey, we want to buy it. Like, we know you didn't win, but we'll give you money for it." So can you imagine if I said no to this thing, then I said no to this? Like that one singular design that got rejected turned into 3 designs, and all of them paid, obviously. And I got like a flat check and royalties from it for the last like 2 or 3 years. And it's just like saying yes to opportunities, making people happy, and most importantly, like charging a fair rate for the work that I do. You know, I don't know if people in the audience have like tattoos. I have tattoos. I like tattoos, but sometimes I go into a shop and just like talk with people, and I find out how much they charge, and it's like that is not fair for the work you are offering, especially comparatively to other people in the same vicinity who offer better quality work at a better rate. And it's not nitpicking price, it's just the reality of it. You know, if you go to a grocery store, I literally just went to a Hispanic grocery store called Compare Foods. Again, don't know if it's in Texas. Their bananas were 69 cents. And they were a little bit smaller ones. And I went to Food Line afterwards because I wanted to buy hummus, because Hispanic grocery stores don't carry hummus because it's not obviously a thing within that culture. And they had bananas for 49 cents. And it's like literally like 2 blocks away. You know, the price doesn't make any sense to me. And I understand why it is, because they have a different suppliers and all that stuff and different locality, even though it's a 2 block difference. But to me, it's like, again, comparatively to the value of work, charge a fair rate for the work. And if you don't think your work is good enough, whatever your metaphorical work is, accept the money, take it as a learning opportunity. You will mess up. It's just life. The most important thing about messing up and getting paid to mess up is the ability to analyze it later on. Like, I look at work that I personally done from 2 or 3 years ago, and while I was like really ecstatic about it 2 or 3 years ago, I look at it now and I'm like, okay, here's where me 2 or 3 years ago dropped the ball just a little bit, and I can look at it now and like analyze it and figure out what I would have done differently in present day. And it's all a learning opportunity. I didn't realize I was learning when I was doing it. I thought I was paying my bills, and that was really important to me. Um, so another thing that I'm really pivotal on is anytime an opportunity presents itself, I follow up on it. I check with people. I make sure that it's good to go, because I'm always like really weary on a what if. Like, there was a local dude who wrestles. I mean, I like him. He's a cool dude. No real name value, and not a disrespectful thing. But he was like intertwined with like a lot of people who are on TV, which is just kind of how that stuff worked out. So I was like, I couldn't imagine if I said no to this local dude that I would not have worked on televised programs. Like, as silly as it sounds, because like, made him happy, then he obviously sold me to somebody else, like my work. Um, and yeah, I don't know, I just found that very valuable. Another thing that I want to retouch upon is, we talked about resumes a second ago. I look at it in the advent of like portfolios. I keep my stuff very, very updated, because I never know. And sometimes like I just have to follow up stuff very, very quickly. So like I keep a lot of it on my phone. Like, I have a smartphone. I have an iPhone 6. It was a good addition. Still works. Um, I keep it on my phone. I keep my resume up there. I keep my flash sheets of like prior work, because you never know where opportunity strikes. Like, you can be in person and people see you and strike up a conversation. So it's really important for me to be able to throw it on them really quickly in a quick elevator pitch style thing. People say stuff all day, but I still rather believe in showing people stuff. Um, Another thing that I want to touch upon is like how I book projects. You know, as a freelance designer, just like with anything in life, you know, you want to get money. I always make sure that I can book people fairly and get priced fairly for everything. You know, I ask for an idea. If people don't have ideas, I ask for 2 or 3 reference images, because sometimes people can't formulate the words they want to use for whatever reason. Maybe it's like an educational attainment issue to where they don't have like the vernacular to structure their argument, or guess what? They don't have an idea. You know, and it's important not to turn people away, because like to me, if you turn anybody away, it's like somewhat discriminatory for some reason, whether you know it's whether it's factual or not. To me, it just feels that way, because to me there's like, you know, intellectual discrimination as well, which is just stuff to be stuff at this point. You know, I ask for color preferences, and I ask for yeah, I ask for clarity on the work, which is 2 or 3 references. Then at that point, we agree upon a price that I throw out and take a deposit of half. You know, throughout life, and I know you guys are like time tied up with college, but you know, eventually we'll take on free opportunities throughout your communications degree or whatever specificity of the degree you choose to apply to. And it's just important to make sure people pay a retainer so they have a reason to keep in communication with you. Because as soon as people just ask for stuff, and if you don't take money, they have no real reason to apply effort into the conversation, but you're still doing the work. Speaking of which, there's one thing I want to touch upon that I found very valuable. You know, I don't know what everyone's in school for, and I know it's very common that people in undergraduate degree to switch up the focus of their major very frequently. And I don't know what everyone's thinking conceptually, but it's very common. Don't sweat it. And if you're not sure, just go with communications, because you can pretty much do anything with any degree to a larger degree, but unless it's something like really specific, like you can't teach Spanish without a Spanish degree, obviously. But if you are trying to figure out life and just want the extra entitlement, communications is fantastic. There's a lot of famous people with communications degree. I guess like most notably is like a 2 Chainz, or like an Ellen DeGeneres, or like an Oprah Winfrey. They all have communications degree from 4-year colleges. You know, and obviously they are doing stuff in like television, music, and media and stuff like that, as opposed to office work. You know, while it's a vague degree, I still think like even if you transition to a different program, everything is what you make out of it. You know, if you treat the degree and the treat opportunities like they aren't anything, they're not going to be anything. But if you treat it as something of value, you'll reap a lot of value from it. You know, and if you're ever worried about like teaching or like working in an unrelated field to your degree, you know, don't worry. A lot of people are working outside of their degree and feels very, very much unrelated to it, because that's the opportunity that they chose to take. That's how they identify. You know, I personally think communication is very important. I took a lot of it during my undergrad, just as like electives. And the reason why I thought it was very important with like word selection, not like certain vernacular or idioms that I want to use, but like how to communicate with people on a very basic level to elicit an emotion. You know, you can always deliver negative information in a positive light. And I found that very, very valuable, because like you always communicate with people, you don't know what they're thinking or like their emotional attachment to certain words. But if you can create an emotional attachment to a feeling, hey, you know, unfortunately, I'm not gonna be able to get to that today, but is it possible I can get that to you tomorrow? Instead of like, nah. You know, and additionally, like to me, communication is also very important in like networking. Overcoming communications barriers is also very valuable as far as like traits that I believe are taught in communications. I'm sure that you guys have taken a test of some sort already at this point, and they'll probably cover like communication barriers, whether people are dealing with static in their head, ears, or like vocal barriers. And I guess like another thing I want to touch upon was what if a job conflicts with my personal beliefs or opinions? And this is something I think about a lot as I'm I care about like a lot of social justice issues, and I'm generally up on like politics. And even though I consider myself like an apolitical person, I still like to objectively view it and have my idea of like certain situations. Obviously there's some things I'm more firm on than others, and that's fine because everybody has their own stances and opinions on things, as we're all individuals, and that's fantastic. But sometimes I get into communications or interactions with people who I don't agree on. Like, for example, I don't want people to discriminate over people based on race, gender, economic class, gender orientation, LGBTQ, any of that stuff. Because personally, everybody should do themselves and be happy and not inflict harm on others. That's me personally. And sometimes I have to interact with people who don't believe these things. And guess what? That sucks. But it's not my job as a businessman to inflict my beliefs on theirs. My belief is I need to obtain this monetary resource and use it and my work to benefit the things that I believe. While I do this for work, you can equivalent it to like a restaurant or a business turning somebody away because of certain things that they don't disagree with based on their identity makeup. My larger goal is to get a doctoral degree. I'm currently expanding my resume based on certain things, like such as museum exhibits, more mentoring opportunities and stuff like that. So I have to make sure that I keep this good, valuable network and I make people feel good so I can keep getting this money to help infiltrate society with the change that I want it to inoculate, like I want to give. So that's where I'm at with that, like personal beliefs in the workplace, and how I relate to it. Are there any thoughts and opinions about anything we covered in the last little bit? No.
Oh, it looks like we have someone raising their hand.
Oh,
Go for it, McKaylee.
How do you limit yourself when it comes to making a portfolio to show to potential like business owners and people that will hire you? Like, how do you make sure you don't go overboard with all of your work?
So, okay. This is like a really silly answer. It's a great question, fantastic question, to be clear. But like, people just want to see stuff. Like, as stupid as that sounds, they just want to see stuff. So for me personally, I show them what I want them to see. And I don't mean that in a malicious way, because I'm very honest with people. But for me personally, I have 12 pieces, and they're 12 of my more recent pieces. And I show those off. And while I do like a lot of illustration-based pieces, I keep that separate. I keep my logo work separate. I keep my Photoshop work separate, and I keep my professional stuff separate. And to me, it's really important because I feel like there's this conception that I do freelance work, that I'm not really doing anything. Like, I'm literally booked 8 weeks out. Now, I want to make that very, very clear that I do work every day, all day, 8 hours, because this is my own business. And I want to make sure that no one is putting in more work, more hustle than I am to get the rewards that I want in life. So my professional resume is very, very important to me, and I keep that very updated. My artistic one, I just put work that I'm happy with and I'm willing to co-sign on. Because the more things you put out in the universe in relation to you, the more you'll attract like-minded people. You have a dog. I just saw your dog. You know what I mean? Like, if you did, for example, 4 paintings of dogs, people are gonna be like, yo, this girl does dog paintings. I want her to paint my dog. And so you'll just keep attracting that. If you do people will be like, people. And people would say some dumb stuff to you like, I didn't know you drew cats too. It's like, yeah, I mean, I can figure it out. Draw whatever you want. So, I don't know what is it that you want to do at the present moment in time?
Oh, me specifically? Like, what do I want to do?
Yeah.
I'm not too sure at the moment, actually. I mean, I'm a portrait senior photographer, but and I've done photography in like yearbook and newspaper for the past few years. So I really like the designing of like media templates and then social media marketing as well. So something along those lines, I think for right now, as well as sports photography. So I want to just
Dude,
something within that field.
dude. So here's the thing, and like, I want to be a graphic designer. I did not know what that meant. Like, I know what graphic design is, but I didn't know the specificity of it. And a large amount of clients of mine are within the world of pro wrestling. And for the record, I love pro wrestling. But I also like making design work, just like you like taking pictures. At a certain point, it really doesn't matter what you're taking pictures of, because you as a person can find aesthetic value in the things that you are taking, your workmanship, and how you frame a picture, the clarity, the depth perception. And you can use that to get other work. In regards to things you have done, because you told me you did like photography, portrait. I think I want to say you did pets as well. If I forgive me if I'm mistaken. I know you want to do sports, but if you say yes to things, things will kind of pan themselves out. And I know it's really, really dumb, but if you just did all wedding photos, right? And your bills are paid on wedding photos, and you had free days, you could be like, guess what? I want to infiltrate sports. I want to buy a ticket to, I'm just making this up, like a AAA team. I don't, like a minor league team, where I can get good seats and kind of bully my way into this field, because they're not paying me to do it, but I can take pictures of my own work and then solicit to it via social media, because social media is a very, very invaluable tool. And not only is it invaluable, how you interact with people is invaluable as well. And to me, like, that's just how you do it. And I don't know if that's accurate, but that's what I would do, because for me, it's like everybody makes sure that their bills are paid. Then everybody searches for like extracurricular activities. Are you familiar with Mark Cuban, the entrepreneur? Mark Cuban's on Shark Tank. He's the white dude with like brownish hair. It doesn't matter. He's also part owner of the Dallas Mavericks. I want to be sure, I'm pretty sure that this is factual information, but he's generally uneducated, like as far as like the collegiate sense. But he was doing some like service work prior to becoming wealthy. And I don't remember the field, but we'll say he like delivered beer kegs places. He was like, I delivered beer kegs to people's work. I said hey to him. I talked to him. I did my job. And the more I started doing good, somebody eventually looked out for me and like, yo, man, I like you. We're about to invest in this thing. It costs 5,000. Do you have 5 grand you want to spend? No. He's like, cool, I'll loan it to you whenever it gets the money back. Just give me back my 5 grand and we're good. So he became very wealthy. He became very wealthy off of that. Then he was like, damn, once I got paid, he's like, I try to think about ways that I can keep doing this instead of doing my service work. So he spends all his time reading now. And I mentioned that to mention the thing that I just mentioned to you. Once you make sure your bills are paid, it's what you do with the additional time that create freedom. Because like, do you currently, or have you had a job in your life? Where have you worked?
I currently work for Aggieland Yearbook with sports photography. I just got that job, and then previously I've been published in the New York Post, and I have also worked for my previous school's newspaper, the University Star at Texas State University, where I mainly did articles and photography as well.
Oh, hell yeah. Well, you've gotten very lucky to where it's all like within the field you want to get. So while I'm not speaking specifically on those places, because I don't know how those places work, but a lot of the parameters of those are dictated by other people. Now, what I mean is there's certain hourly obligations, certain work obligations that they set, and you kind of have to adhere to. And that's just how life is. For me, I'm able to make my own. So I'm trying to like take your example and skew it a little bit. So I do apologize, because I don't want to like sound like I'm bad mouthing anybody, because I'm not. But there's certain things you're able to do in a day based upon your own interests and the interest of the people that give you money. If you work all day on somebody else's goals and you are too tired to work on your own, are you motivated or are you just making excuses? You're making excuses. It's just how it is, you know, because those people are in the business of making sure that they don't work. You know what I mean? The people at the hierarchy of McDonald's are like, yo, I'm trying to play golf. I'm trying to get my free hamburgers. I'm trying to find my mistress, trying to do something other than flip the burgers themselves physically, you know? And yeah, I mean, that's just generally how I equivalent it with work. So, you know, once you have your free time, you can focus on what you want and focus on how to expand it. Like, to me, I do like a lot of extracurricular research. I don't know how that specifically applies to your field, but I'm just giving you things that work for me. You know, throughout a design, if I do a design for 8 hours, only 2 of those hours are actual work. The other posts, you edit photos, so you're just kind of like on autopilot after a hot second, because you just replicate the aesthetic throughout it. What are you doing with that time that you're not working, you know, with your mind? What are you putting into it? What I would do is I would look at people who are doing what I want to do in the field, listen to their books, their speeches, and listen to the beats that they are hitting to make sure that I can replicate that in my own life. So for me personally, I do like a lot of like socio-political stuff, both conservative and liberal, because that's what I want to hear. I want to hear both sides of the coin. I want to hear both opinions, and I want to hear it both with factual backings. I also do like a lot of like economic-based stuff with like food inequalities and disparities. I do like a lot of like racial theory and like racial dysphoria as well, because again, it's stuff that I care about, generally speaking. And again, I love hearing both sides of the argument, because to me, while I do have like a lot of liberal ideas, I do not consider myself either this or this. I'm an objective person where I try to objectively glance at things, because everybody is a hero in their own story. No one's out there trying to like, yo, I'm going to be the villain in this story. I'm going to be John's villain today. No. And you know, the more I've done that, the more I've seen things passively pan themselves out. You know, as silly as it sounds, I'm very, very happy to speak to you guys today, but I didn't know I wanted to do this. You know, it was offered to me by putting these ideas out there, and somebody offered it. And I was like, dude, I would love to do this. I would love to do this because it's very valuable to me. You know, it's very valuable to like practice these communication skills, to articulate ideas, to sell myself as a person. Hopefully some of y'all think I'm likable to a certain extent, you know? But yeah, I mean, that's just where I'm at with it and what I think people should do with their time in order to obtain the goals that they seek for themselves. Does this information find value to you? Sweet, hell yeah.
Can you talk a little bit? We have a lot of people in this class who want to do like social media marketing, and they might be working for, you know, smaller companies or for themselves, where they are the ones creating like all of the posts that go, you know, on the social media channels. Can you talk a little bit about maybe like what you would think someone might need to know in that field in terms of graphic design? Like what are some resources they can use or skills they might want to have?
So like with like a lot of the platforms that are being used have generally all the information you need within them. And you can look at like analyticals and how people respond to things. People can note, like I use Hootsuite and MailChimp. MailChimp is like a email spamming kind of gimmick, and Hootsuite is like a multimedia marketing tool. So you can post on like Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and all that stuff at the same time, essentially. And they have like analyticals in there. You can see how much people click or how people respond to like certain taglines. You can see what's else in other feeds. So me, I do a little bit of research on that, but because the audience that we're trying to attract, we're just trying to build our name value up locally as opposed to like nationally. And the reason being is there's comes like a lot of parameters within like shipping and the inability to have like a localized website. We do have like social media websites like Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. But as far as like our .coms, there's like a little bit of an issue due to the size of the business. So we have 4 locations and we cater to the larger Charlotte area and like the outskirting cities. But as far as like shipping goes, we have a lot of problems shipping our products due to having them physically in stock, because we do good business, very fortunately. So I said that to get to my next point. My next point is, you can mess with analyticals based on your perception of the audience, but you got to remember, it's not about what you think the audience wants. It's about listening to what the audience wants. The audience will tell you based upon their reciprocity of it. But I think that with aesthetics and like visuals, because everybody's a visual person, you're attracted to your friends the first time you saw them because, like, hey, I like how they dress, I like how they look, those are my friends, I want to get to know them, that you can implement the aesthetic you want to see within a field. Obviously, if you're doing more corporate-based work, there's certain guidelines that you have to adhere to. So certain color parameters and specific color palette and specific type palette and stuff like that. But to me, it's like people need to make stuff that is captivating to the person that is perpetuating it. Because if you're not intrigued by it, how do you expect another person to be intrigued by it? And to me, I find that like even more valuable, because like we talked about earlier with like my design work and how I formed my own style. I just made the stuff I like. I just made the stuff I want to see more, in hopes that, like, hey, maybe people give me free shirts, so I can have more shirts that I like and have to buy more shirts. So I don't want to spend money on it. But yeah, I mean, that's generally it with like that. Because here's the thing, like, if you do customer service, people are going to give you your opinion. If you ask an opinion of somebody, they want to give it to you. And they may not be able to articulate it properly or give you actual information as opposed to like an emotional based response, but people are wanting to engage with you, and you can at least extract some truth in that, to help make yourself better, because by helping a customer, you're providing utility for them and ultimately providing more utility for yourself, because the better you do, the more customers you have, the more money they'll implement into your business, and the more your business is going to pay you to do the work. Does that answer your question? Sweet.
We probably have time for one more question. Does anybody have any final questions about design, or we've talked a lot about networking, building your brand. You guys will have to create a logo to put in your videos. Does anybody have any logo questions? Or do you have a logo comment?
I heard somebody, but I wasn't sure.
Oh yeah, no, I think that was me. I have a question. Yeah. So you said, you said that that you majored in sociology, I think, right? But I was just kind of wondering, because because I've never done like physically any graphic design work, but just kind of like looking into it and just like researching it, like it's a whole like another kind of learning process of its own. So like, what did you do to like kind of like get yourself like, and it was just like trial and error? Were you just going on like Adobe, or did you take extra classes like outside of school?
So I did not take extra classes. So here's like a little bit of I guess like backstory. I used to be in a few death metal bands, and we were signed to like national labels and did thanks. And at the time, I was doing all our business work. So I was in a death metal band called Labyrinth. We were on Tribunal, same labels like Kill When He Dead, Atreyu, Demonstration, and stuff like that. And I was in another band called Abhorrent Deformity, who like we're in the same labels like Pathology and Devourment. So like more of like the brutal death metal kind of stuff. And there was certain work that I can't do, like design wise. It's just like, it's not my wheelhouse. And I didn't want to pay somebody to do the things that I could do though. So it was like a lot of trial and error. And I look back at some of the stuff, and it's like, rudimentary in the large scale, but it got the job done. I'm still happy with it in retrospect. Because if I need a simple shirt, I'm not going to pay somebody $50 to do it, and I can just do it, and it takes 5 minutes, So again, a lot of trial and error in that regard. As far as like getting into design work, do it. Like, do it. Like, I'm not speaking on you specifically, so I don't want this to come out that way. But like, let's say you spend a week, like, fuck, I want to go to the gym. I just don't feel like going to the gym today, You spend a week putting it off instead of just 2 days in the week just doing it. Think about the amount of time that we waste personally, You're going to mess up everything. Like, I go to the gym all the time. I go 3 days a week. And I mean, the first few months, I was just going to go, and it was really much a learning process. Now I have like more comfortability with it, know how to like get my supersets in, know my diet, how I want my body to look based on things I do to myself. So it's really just a trial and error thing. And here's another thing, like if you want to know something, there's unlimited resources out there on the internet. Like I believe in school and I believe in like higher education. Like I want to make that like straight up. But there's a lot of free stuff out there for degrees that don't really matter. Like, don't get me wrong, like I love graphic design, but they're just going to teach you how to work a program. They're not going to teach you to do good work. You know what I mean? And anybody can work a program. I used to date this girl. She was very proficient in Photoshop. All her work was trash. And like, I don't mean that in a rude way, but like, I'm not that proficient in Photoshop. So I have to like make myself stronger on this aspect when she could just make her stronger on the other aspect. You know what I mean?
Yeah, man.
So I would just do a lot of trial and error in regard to that. And if it's something you can't get paid for, make something you like, because then you could get paid for it, by putting it out there. Because people don't know what they want. They know what they want when they see it. It's like when you go to Walmart. You guys have Walmart out there. You go get the little things you go get. Then you get to the checkout. Like, oh shit, is that a Snickers? I did not know I wanted a Snickers today.
Yeah.
Pick it up. Yeah. But for me, I picked sociology because of what I was doing for work at the time. Like, so I do media marketing part-time at this chain of stores, but I was a key holder, and I just hated my job. And I also hated the people I was around. But there was things about my job that I loved. Like, I'm 6'2", very attractive, heavily tattooed, and I dealt with people who were scared of me because I was like towering over them. Because a lot of people are just shorter than me. I'm not the tallest person in the world, but it's one of those things. And I found the value in that. My value was like the things I care about, like social justice issues and communications issues, because I had to say things in relation to people and their bodies, such as like shirt and shoes and socks and stuff like that. But I had to make sure I didn't say it in an invasive manner, because I am a male, and a lot of the people that came in the store were women. You know what I mean? And it's not a man's place to tell a woman what to do with their body, just to be clear on that. But it's nobody's job to tell you about your own body or your own ideas or the things you like. No one should put a cap on you but you. You know what I mean? So it all just panned itself out, and it really did. And I just say all of that because it's like, even if you don't realize it now, if you put the ideas you want out there, things will work itself out. As dumb as that sounds and as careless as that sounds, just will. Does this answer your question at all?
Yeah, no, it did. Thank you.
Yeah, no worries. And one thing I do want to touch upon with the teacher in a second, everybody has to do a logo. I know everyone's skill level is different. What I would do if I were making my own logo, which I have, I would keep it simple, concise, like everything together, and legibility. Like, I love death metal. Do not get me wrong. I love some death metal. But a lot of these logos, I can't read them. I just know what the shape looks like because I've seen it enough. That is a bad logo because, if people saw my shirt, they'd be like, that's death metal, and walk away, But if you see like a Nike shirt, you're like, oh shit, that's Nike. That person must exercise. That person must like sports. It gives you something more. It gives you more about the person who is representing it and more about the business and the aesthetic around the business. So whenever y'all come up with your logos, I would go on Google, find 2 to 3 logos that you like. And if you find more logos, grab like 6 or 7, but really boil it down to 2 to 3. The reason why, for me, I find that helps to get everything very, very specific as to where you're thinking, because we're all eclectic people with different interests. You know what I mean? The whole point is trying to pivot the message that you want to give to people. So by boiling it down 2 or 3, you can like take a little bit of A, take a little bit of B, take a little bit of C, and just meld it together and use that as a stamp. Think of it as like a little stamp on a card, So that's just quick advice that I would give for like the logos that you'll be creating for your brand or your entity or whatnot.
That's super helpful. Thank you so much. So we've reached the end of our class. So unfortunately, we're gonna have to cut it off. But if everybody could say thank you to Mark for being here, we super appreciate it. And I'm gonna share your Instagram with them so they can go look at your designs in more detail if they'd like. So thank you so much for being here. And have a good rest of your day, guys.
All right, bye.
Bye, Mark. Thanks.